before I get to the goddamn drink! RPG!
Following the ousting of the central government in 1993, amid the civil war in Somalia, Eastern Africa, the United Nations Security Council authorizes a military operation with a peacekeeping mandate. After the bulk of the peacekeepers withdraw, the Mogadishu-based militia loyal to Mohammed Farah Aidid, a man who seizes international shipments at the ports to starve the inhabitants of Somalia, declares war on the remaining UN personnel. In response, U.S. President Washington deploys Task Force Rangers, consisting of 3rd Battalion 75th Ranger Regiment, Delta Force operators and flight crew of the 160th SOAR, to Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia, to capture Aidid, who has proclaimed himself president. The mission was to take 3 weeks, but 6 weeks later, Washington was growing impatient. During a patrol in a helicopter, U.S. Armies seize Aidid's militias shoot at innocent civilians who were packing food shipments that were brought to them on a truck by Red Cross. They request for permission to engage from their superiors, but is denied, and they fly away doing nothing. Outside Mogadishu, Rangers and Delta Force capture Osman Ali Ato, a faction leader selling arms to Aidid's militias. He's taken to their camp, where he's interrogated by General Garrison. On arrival, he offers him Cuban cigars, but he refuses. Garrison asks him about the whereabouts of Aidid and tells him that they ain't leaving Somalia until they've captured Aidid, and then leaves the room. The U.S. Armies then plans a mission to capture Omar Salat Elmi and Abdi Hassan Awale, 2 of Aidid's top advisors. The U.S. forces include experienced men as well as new recruits, including 18-year-old Private First Class Todd Blackburn and Specialist John Grimes, a desk clerk. Blackburn asks questions about the war while then registered in their database and tells Grimes that he came to Somalia to kick some ass. Grimes takes him to meet Staff Sergeant Matthew Aversman, who was training his rangers on how to aim well. Blackburn introduces himself to him, and they exchange pleasantries. At night, after eating dinner, the soldiers were having a good time together, cracking some jokes. Their general walks in and they keep mute. After some little talks with them, he tells them to carry on. Aversman responds to mocking remarks about Somalis from fellow soldiers by saying he respects the Somalis and has compassion for the terrible conditions of civil war for the Somali people, saying there are 2 things they can do. Either we can help, or we can sit back and watch a country destroy itself on CNN. One of the soldiers said he was trained to fight. Aversman tells him that he was trained to make a difference, and they laugh about it. His lieutenant goes to watch his favorite program on TV and suffers from a seizure. At dawn, Aversman receives his first command of Ranger Chalk 4 after his lieutenant was diagnosed to having epilepsy and was about to be sent home. Aversman is told about his duty and is told that the lives of his rangers depends on the decisions he takes. The U.S. Army hires a Somalian man who gives them intels about the movement and whereabouts of Aidid's top advisors. They hold a meeting and shows the soldiers pictures of the men they're after. General Garrison shows them the plan and the possible location of the individuals they're after. He tells them that the mission's time from incursion to extraction is no longer than 30 minutes, and that Black Hawks will be their air cover. He tells them the mission launch code word, which is Irene. He urges them to make no mistake, because the Bikara market is a very hostile district, and also warns them not to underestimate their capabilities. He reminds them of the rules of engagement: do not fire unless fired upon, and then bids them good luck. The Somalian man puts a mark on the top of his car using a black tape so the U.S. Army could track his location. Aversman calls his Chalk members to a meeting in a bid to motivate them for their forthcoming mission. He tells them to stick to the plan and they will all be fine. Grimes takes some equipments that weren't necessary for the mission, but is discouraged about it by some soldiers, and then drops them back. He sees another soldier putting his name tag on his boots and smiles over it. Aversman meets Blackburn, who looks nervous about the mission and asks him if he's okay, but he tells Aversman that he's been waiting his whole life for this moment and taps him on his back and goes away. By 2:29 p.m., the Somalian man drives into the Barkara market, with the army watching over him from a copper. He drives slowly into the market listening to ancient Somalian music. In the Joint Operations Center where Garrison was, he asks the man to switch off his radio, and he does. He moves into a crowd of people and suddenly stops his car. Garrison asks if this the place or did his car just take a dump. They asks him if this the place, and he keeps mute looking at Aided's militias that were passing on a truck loaded with guns. After they've passed, he talks and tells them that the building is at his right-hand side above the cafe. They asks him if he were sure. He stammers and tells them it's 2 blocks away and can't go any closer because they might shoot him. Garrison tells him that he's not getting paid if he doesn't go to the exact building they agreed upon. He switches on his car and moves ahead a little and then stops. He comes out of the car and opens the bonnet. Garrison confirms the sign and communicates to their troops to get ready. They communicate to all unit telling them Irene. In amusement, the pilot screams Irene as more soldiers hops in the coppers. Garrison meets them before they take off and tells them that no one should be left behind. While on their way, Malam 1 Aided's top militias gets intels from little children he deployed at different location and gets his boys ready for war. They began burning tires to signal the rest of their gang that the soldiers are coming. As they approach the location, people are seen running helter-skelter in search of safety. The operation begins and Delta Force operators capture Aided's advisors inside the target building, while the Rangers and helicopters escorting the ground extraction convoy take heavy fire. An RPG is shot at them, and while trying to dodge it, Blackburn is severely injured as he falls from the Black Hawk helicopter. A Verseman quickly gets down to check on Blackburn and calls for help. He removes his helmet and tells his superiors that he's got a man down. They put him on a stretcher and runs to the extraction point, where 3 Humvees led by Staff Sergeant Jeff are detached from the convoy to return Blackburn to the UN-held Mogadishu airport. On their way, they fight off many militias. Sergeant Pillett is shot and killed just as Jeff's column departs. They confirm him dead and tells their leader immediately. Shortly thereafter, Black Hawk Super 6-1, piloted by Chief Warrant Officer Elvis Walcott, is shot down by a rocket-propelled RPG. They report to have a Black Hawk down. Walcott and his co-pilot are killed. The 2 crew chiefs are wounded. The ground forces are rerouted to converge on the crash site. A Verseman is ordered to take part of these troops to the crash site, check for survivors, and secure the perimeters by Lieutenant Steele. He calls his troops together and chooses 2 soldiers to stay back and wait for the Humvees to come pick them up. More soldiers are sent to go to the crash site to help secure the perimeters. While still there, the Humvees passes the 2 soldiers left behind by a Verseman unknown to them. The militias gets to the crash site, but has been fought off by 1 Delta Force sniper on board, Bush, who didn't die from the crash. He's shot severely, but he manages to continue fighting. One of the soldiers gets separated from the other troops and runs into a house for safety. He sees a Somalian woman and some kids and tells them to keep shut. He quietly tries to go through the back door, but slides unintentionally to the ground, causing the little boy chasing him to shoot his father. He runs to his dad while the soldier gets up, but couldn't shoot the little boy as his father dies on his hands and goes away. The 3 Humvees takes the injured casualties to their camp, and they are checked upon quickly. Meanwhile, 2 Ranger Chalks, including a Verseman's unit, reach Super 6-1's crash site and set up a defensive perimeter to await evacuation with the 2 wounded men and the fallen pilots. Somali militia erects roadblocks, and Lieutenant Colonel Danny Manite's Humvee column is unable to reach the crash area and sustains heavy casualties. They stop to fight off the militias, while shooting a soldier picks up the hand of another soldier that was hit by a grenade that he recognized through his wristwatch. They pick up his remains and continue fighting off the militias. The 2 soldiers that were left behind by a Verseman decides to go meet the other troops after much thoughts and goes out to meet them. As they move ahead, they see a man running towards them and shoots. Unknown to them, it was a soldier. He yells at them, and they apologize for shooting at him and tells them to come to his location, and they move out in search of the crash site. In the interim, Super 6-4, piloted by Chief Warrant Officer Michael Durant, is also shot down by a rocket-propelled grenade and crashes several blocks away. More soldiers from the base reinforce and goes back into the war, with Captain Mike Steele's Rangers pinned down and sustaining heavy casualties. No ground forces can reach Super 6-4's crash site, nor reinforce the Rangers defending Super 6-1. 2 Delta Force snipers, Sergeant First Class Randy and Master Sergeant Gary Gordon, are inserted by helicopter to Super 6-4's crash site, where they find Durant still alive. They then taxi him into a building. He asks about the rescue squad. They tells him that they are it. The site is eventually overran. Gordon and Randy are killed and is carried by the people, while Durant is beaten by a crowd of people before captured by Aided's militias. Durant is then interrogated by Ferenby. Durant tells him that he's a pilot and not a soldier. Ferenby tells him that he wants him to help him get the hostages back, but Durant tells him that his government will never negotiate for him. He tells him that even if they get hold of Mohammed Aidid, that the killings in Somalia will continue, and then walks away. The men prepare to go back to extract the Rangers and the fallen pilots, and General Garrison sends Lieutenant Colonel Joe Cribbs to ask for reinforcements from the 10th Mountain Division, including Malaysian and Pakistani armored units from the UN coalition. As night falls gradually, Aversman is contacted by some soldiers and told not to shoot to the east because they were coming to meet him from that route. While running to meet Aversman quietly, the militants hears their footsteps and shoots at the last soldier, and he falls to the ground. He's helped by another soldier who gets shot, and it's taken inside to stop the bleeding. Opening the side of the gunshot, blood gushes out and spills on their faces. They request for medevac from their superiors, but are told they can't hit any medevacs at this time of the day, and tells them to hold on till dawn. They try arresting the bleeding and removes the bullet. He screams out of pain, while Aversman tells him that he will be fine, of which he eventually dies. They are attacked by Malam and his gang. He shoots at them and forces the soldiers to hide in search of safety. Some soldiers go behind him and kills his gang before firing a rocket at him, and he dies. Aidid's militants launches a sustained assault on the trapped Americans at Super 6-1's crash site. The militants are held off throughout the night by strafing runs and rocket attacks from helicopter guns until the 10th Mountain Division's relief column is able to reach the American soldiers. The wounded and casualties are evacuated in the Humvees, but a few Rangers and Delta Force soldiers are forced to run on foot from the crash site to reach the safe zone at the stadium. As they get to the stadium, they are given water to drink while the wounded were attended to. Garrison goes to the operating room and helps in cleaning blood spills on the floor. The end titles recount the immediate aftermath of the mission and end of U.S. military operations in Somalia. Michael Durant was released after 11 days of captivity. 2 weeks later, President Bill Clinton withdrew all U.S. forces from Somalia. During the raid, more than 1,000 Somalis and 19 American soldiers died. The names of the 19 soldiers who died, including Delta Sergeant Gordon and Shewart, who were the first soldiers to receive the Medal of Honor posthumously since the Vietnam War, were listed by name. Mohammed Farah Aidid was killed in 1996. The following day, General Garrison retired. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notification to watch more of our interesting videos. Thank you.